The alarm clock blinked at 6:47 a.m., 2 minutes late. Nathan's gut twisted. Olivia always knocked at 6:45. Something was wrong. He slid out of bed, bare feet hitting the cold hardwood floor. The house was quiet. Too quiet for a Thursday morning. No sounds of Mom making breakfast downstairs, no shuffle of Dad's newspaper, no classic rock playing from Olivia's room while she got ready for school. Just silence, thick and heavy like fog. Nathan crept to his bedroom door, each step careful and measured. The hallway stretched before him, morning shadows playing tricks with his eyes. Olivia's door was closed. Unusual for this time of day, she always left it open after waking up, claiming the house felt less lonely that way. His hand trembled as he reached for her doorknob. The metal felt ice cold against his palm. He turned it slowly, wincing at the slight creak of hinges. "Liv?" he whispered into the darkness. No response. Light from the hallway spilled into her room, revealing a perfectly made bed. Corners tucked, pillows arranged, stuffed animals lined up like sentries along the headboard. Her backpack sat beside her desk, looking oddly deflated. Nathan's heart began to race. This wasn't right. Olivia was messy by nature, leaving a tornado of clothes and books in her wake every morning. Their mom always joked that getting Olivia to make her bed was like trying to teach a fish to juggle. Impossible and slightly ridiculous. Nathan moved to her desk, drawn by an unsettling feeling of wrongness. Her laptop was closed, textbooks stacked neatly beside it. But something was missing. The leather-bound journal she wrote in religiously, the one Dad had given her for her 16th birthday, was gone. Olivia never went anywhere without that journal. A floorboard creaked behind him. Nathan spun around, expecting to see his sister's familiar smirk, ready to tease him for being so jumpy. Instead, he found himself staring at an empty doorway. The silence seemed to press in around him, making it hard to breathe. That's when he noticed the note, tucked halfway under her pillow. The paper was torn from her journal, the edges ragged as if ripped in haste. Nathan's fingers shook as he unfolded it, recognizing Olivia's usually neat handwriting now jagged and rushed. "They're watching. Don't trust the food. Find the key. I'm sorry." The words blurred as tears welled in his eyes. Below the message was a series of numbers and letters that made no sense. 4C, 7B, 2A, 9D. Nathan read them over and over, committing them to memory even, though he didn't understand their meaning. Footsteps echoed up the stairs, accompanied by his mother's voice calling out with forced cheerfulness, "Nathan! Olivia? Breakfast is ready." Something in her tone made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. It sounded almost like his mom, but not quite, like someone trying to play a part they hadn't quite mastered. Nathan quickly folded the note and slipped it into his pajama pocket. The morning sun finally broke through the clouds outside, casting long shadows across Olivia's empty room. As Nathan stood there, heart pounding in his chest, one thought kept repeating in his mind. What had happened to his sister? And why didn't anyone else seem to notice she was gone? Heavy footsteps approached Olivia's room. Nathan's breath caught in his throat as a shadow fell across the doorway. He had seconds to decide, hide or face whatever was coming. The choice he made in that moment would change everything. Time seemed to slow as the doorknob began to turn. Nathan dove under Olivia's bed, pressing himself against the wall just as the door swung open. His mother's slippers came into view, pink and fluffy, the ones Olivia had given her for Christmas. But something was off about the way she moved, each step too precise, too measured. "Nathan?" Her voice carried that same artificial cheerfulness. "I know you're in here, sweetie. Come down for breakfast. I made your favorite, blueberry pancakes." He held his breath, watching her feet pivot slowly around the room. That's when he noticed it. A piece of paper, crumpled and wedged between the baseboard and carpet. His fingers inched toward it as his mother's footsteps faded down the hallway. Once the coast was clear, Nathan extracted himself from under the bed, the mysterious paper clutched in his trembling hand. As he smoothed it out, his blood ran cold. The message was typed in stark black letters. "You don't belong here. Neither of you do." Over the next few weeks, Nathan watched his sister change. Olivia, once vibrant and chatty, became a shadow of herself. She pushed food around her plate at dinner, claiming she wasn't hungry. Their parents didn't seem to notice, or chose not to. "Liv," he whispered one night, catching her in the kitchen at 3 a.m. "What's going on?" She jumped at his voice, nearly dropping the glass of water in her hand. Her phone screen lit up with another message, the 7th that night. Nathan caught a glimpse of an unfamiliar number before she quickly tucked it away. "Nothing," she said, but her voice cracked. "Just teenage stuff. You wouldn't understand." That's what everyone kept saying. When Nathan tried telling their dad about Olivia's strange behavior, he got the same response. "She's 17, son. Mood swings are normal at that age." But mood swings didn't explain the crying he heard through the bathroom door every morning, or the way Olivia flinched when their mother touched her shoulder, or the mysterious calls that came at odd hours. One afternoon, Nathan was helping with laundry when he found a small notebook tucked inside Olivia's jacket pocket. Different from her regular journal, this one was filled with bizarre sequences of numbers and letters, similar to the code from her note. On the last page, circled multiple times, were the words, 48 hours left, choose wisely. That night, thunder rolled across the sky as Nathan lay awake, listening to the hushed voices coming from Olivia's room. He pressed his ear against the wall they shared. "You can't keep doing this," Olivia was saying, her voice trembling. "He's just a kid." A response came, too muffled to make out, but something about it made Nathan's skin crawl. It didn't sound like any voice he recognized. "I won't let you," Olivia continued, stronger now. "I'll find another way." The conversation ended with the sound of breaking glass. Nathan bolted upright, ready to run to her room, but Olivia's door opened first. She hurried past his room, heading downstairs. Their parents' door remained closed, as if they hadn't heard anything at all. Nathan slipped out of bed and followed, keeping to the shadows. In the kitchen, Olivia was shoving items into her backpack. A flashlight, some granola bars, a small first aid kit. Her hands shook as she scribbled something in her journal. "Where are you going?" Nathan asked, making her jump. Olivia spun around, tears streaming down her face. "Go back to bed, Nate. Please, just remember what I told you about the food, and if anything happens to me..." A loud knock at the front door cut her off. 3 sharp raps that seemed to echo through the entire house. Olivia's face went pale. "They're early," she whispered, more to herself than to Nathan. "No, no, no." Before Nathan could react, Olivia shoved her backpack into his arms. "Hide this," she hissed. "Don't let them find it. Promise me." The knocking came again, more insistent this time. Footsteps creaked overhead. Their parents, finally stirring. Olivia pushed Nathan toward the pantry. "Go, please." He stumbled backward into the dark space, clutching the backpack to his chest as Olivia closed the door. Through the slats, he watched his sister compose herself, wiping away tears before walking toward the front door. Nathan's fingers found the zipper of the backpack, and he quietly opened it. Among the supplies she'd packed, he found her journal. The real one, not the decoy she'd left in her room. His hands trembled as he opened it, using the dim light from his phone to read. The first pages were normal enough. Typical teenage stuff about school and friends. But around 3 months ago, the entries changed, became darker, more desperate. "They found me again," one entry read. "I thought I could start fresh here, but they always find me. Said if I don't play along, they'll hurt Nathan next. I can't let that happen. He's just a kid. He doesn't deserve this." Nathan's heart pounded as he turned the pages. Lists began appearing, reasons why she felt like disappearing, places she could go, people she could trust. A frighteningly short list. The writing became more frantic, the pages crinkled with dried tears. Reasons to stay. "Nathan needs me, Mom." And Dad would be devastated. "Running won't solve anything. They'll just find me again." Reasons to go. "Nathan might be next. Can't keep pretending everything's normal. The hunger is getting worse. The voices won't stop. They're watching through the cameras. The food isn't right anymore. Nothing feels real here." Voices filtered through the pantry door, unfamiliar ones, speaking in low, urgent tones. Olivia's responses were too quiet to make out, but something about her tone made Nathan's skin crawl. He flipped to the most recent entry, dated just hours ago. "If you're reading this, Nathan, I'm sorry. I tried to protect you, but I failed. They're not who they say they are. Mom and Dad, they're different now. Something happened to them last month when they went on that weekend trip. They came back wrong. The food, the cameras, the phone calls. It's all connected. The code I left you, 4C7B2A9D, opens the safe in Dad's study. Inside you'll find proof of everything. But be careful. Don't let them see you looking. Don't eat anything they give you. And whatever you do, don't..." The entry cut off mid-sentence. The rest of the page was blank. A scream pierced the air, Olivia's voice, but distorted with terror. Nathan's blood turned to ice. He had to make a decision. Stay hidden as his sister had asked, or act now before it was too late. Through the pantry. Slats? He saw shadows moving in the hallway. Voices grew louder, more insistent. Something heavy thudded against the wall. "Please," Olivia's voice cracked. "He doesn't know anything. Just leave him alone." Nathan's fingers found his phone in the darkness. 3 options lay before him. Call 911 and risk making things worse, try to help Olivia himself, or find what was hidden in the safe first. The sound of breaking glass decided for him. Nathan dialed 911, his thumb trembling over the call button. But before he could press it, the pantry door swung open. His mother stood there, but her smile was all wrong. Too wide, too perfect, like a mask about to slip. Behind her, 2 tall figures in dark suits flanked a struggling Olivia. "Nathan, sweetheart," his mother said in that too sweet voice, "why don't you come out and join us for a nice family dinner?" His thumb hit the call button. Everything happened at once. The phone connected with a click. Olivia screamed, "Run!" The men in suits lunged forward, and Nathan's mother's face, it seemed to ripple like a reflection in disturbed water. He dove between them, clutching Olivia's journal to his chest. Behind him, a dispatcher's voice crackled from his phone on the floor. 911, what's your emergency? 47981 Maple Street, Nathan shouted as he ran. Please, hurry! He made it halfway up the stairs before strong hands grabbed him. His father's voice, but wrong, hollow, mechanical. Son, you're making this much harder than it needs to be. Red and blue lights suddenly flooded through the windows. Sirens wailed in the distance, Growing closer, the men in suits exchanged glances. Olivia took advantage of their momentary distraction, wrenching free and running to Nathan. "The journal," she gasped. "You read it. You weren't supposed to." Her voice broke as she saw it clutched in his hands. "You had no right." "I had every right," Nathan shouted back, tears streaming down his face. "You're my sister. I couldn't just watch you disappear." The front door burst open. Police officers flooded in, weapons drawn. "Hands where we can see them." The men in suits moved with inhuman speed, but they weren't fast enough. More officers poured in through the back door. In the chaos, Nathan saw his parents' faces shift, like masks peeling away, revealing something underneath that made his stomach turn. Olivia collapsed against him, sobbing. "I'm sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry. I thought I could handle it alone." "They said they'd hurt you if I told anyone. They've been watching us for months, replacing people, changing things." "Miss," one of the officers approached carefully, "we've been investigating a series of similar reports in the area. Strange behavior, people acting wrong, families being targeted. You're not alone." Nathan watched as the men in suits were handcuffed, their faces now bizarrely blank, like mannequins. His parents, or whatever had been wearing their faces, were secured by another team of officers. Through the window, he could see more police cars arriving, along with unmarked vehicles and what looked like government agents. "Your real parents," an officer explained gently, checking something on her phone, "were found safe at a facility upstate. They've been looking for you. These individuals have been using sophisticated technology to replace people, infiltrate families. We've been tracking them for months." Olivia's legs gave out. Nathan caught her, helping her sit on the stairs. She looked at the journal in his hands, then back at him. "I was so angry," she whispered. "So scared. They were everywhere, at school, in the neighborhood. I thought I was going crazy. And then Mom and Dad went away for that weekend." "You're not crazy," Nathan said firmly, holding her hand. "But you should have told me. We could have faced this together." A medical team arrived, checking them both over. As dawn broke, the house became a whirlwind of activity. Evidence being collected, statements taken, preparations made to reunite them with their real parents. "I didn't want to burden you," Olivia said softly as they sat wrapped in shock blankets. "You're my little brother. I'm supposed to protect you." "And who protects you?" Nathan asked, his voice cracking. "We protect each other. That's what family does." An agent approached them, holding Nathan's phone. "Smart thinking, kid," she said. "That 911 call gave us the break we needed. We've been trying to locate their base of operations for months. Your sister's journal might help us understand how they choose their targets." Nathan felt Olivia tense beside him. "The journal's private," he said firmly. "You can't—" "It's okay," Olivia interrupted, squeezing his hand. "If it helps stop them from hurting other families." She took a shaky breath. "But I want to read it first. All of it. With Nathan." The agent nodded, understanding. "Take your time. We have counselors ready when you're willing to talk." As the I-80 sun rose fully, Nathan and Olivia sat on their front porch, watching the investigation unfold. The journal lay between them, its pages holding the dark truth of the past few months. "I'm still mad you read it," Olivia said quietly. "But thank you for not giving up on me, for seeing what I couldn't tell you." The weeks that followed moved in slow motion. Their real parents, after being rescued from the facility upstate, wrapped them in tearful embraces that lasted what felt like hours. The family moved temporarily into a hotel while investigators combed through their house, removing hidden cameras and other surveillance equipment. Nathan watched Olivia carefully during those first few days. She jumped at sudden noises, barely, ate, and woke up screaming from nightmares. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. It started with small moments. Mom insisted on cooking meals together, turning dinner prep into a family activity. Dad worked from home more often. His desk moved to the living room where he could be part of their daily lives. They talked, really talked, about everything that had happened. The investigation revealed a network of imposters who had been infiltrating families across the country. The technology they used was advanced, allowing them to perfectly mimic people's appearances and basic behaviors. But they couldn't replicate the depth of real human connection, which was why Nathan had sensed something wrong from the start. 1. Morning, about a month after everything happened, Nathan found Olivia sitting in the hotel's garden, writing in a new journal. "Is it okay if I join you?" he asked, hovering uncertainly. She looked up, her eyes clearer than they'd been in months. "Yeah," she said, patting the space beside her. "I'd like that." "What are you writing about?" "Everything." She turned the page toward him. "I'm not hiding anymore. See?" The page was filled with her thoughts about therapy, about healing, about learning to trust again. There were darker moments too: anger at the imposters, fear of being watched, guilt about keeping secrets. But between the lines, hope shined through. Their parents had changed too. Not in the terrifying way the imposters had, but in real, human ways. Mom started a support group for other families who'd been targeted. Dad joined a task force dedicated to preventing similar incidents. Family dinner became sacred time. Phones off, conversations on, everyone present and accounted for. The day they finally moved back into their house, it felt different, safer somehow. They'd repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, and added extra security measures. But the real change was in them. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He found himself standing in Olivia's doorway, an echo of that morning months ago when everything started. But this time, the room wasn't empty. Olivia sat at her desk, lamplight, casting a warm glow as she worked on her college applications. "Can't sleep?" she asked without turning around. "Just checking," he said. She spun in her chair to face him, her expression soft. "I'm here, Nate. I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "Promise." She stood up and hugged him tight. "You know, everyone keeps saying you saved me. The police, the therapist, Mom and Dad." "Did I?" Nathan whispered into her shoulder. Olivia pulled back, looking at him with tears in her eyes. "You did more than save me. You showed me I didn't have to save myself alone." Later that night, as Nathan finally drifted off to sleep, he thought about how much had changed. The imposters were gone, facing justice for their crimes. Their real parents were back, more present than ever. And Olivia, she was healing, day by day, word by word in her new journal. Some mornings, he still woke up checking the time, half expecting to find something wrong. But then he'd hear Olivia's music playing, Mom singing off-key in the kitchen, Dad's laugh carrying up the stairs. Real sounds, real people, real love. The world wasn't safer, exactly. They all knew too much now about the darkness that could lurk behind familiar faces, but they were stronger together, more aware of the light that could push back that darkness. As fall turned to winter, Nathan watched his sister standing in the garden, her face turned up to catch the first snow of the season. She was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in months. When she caught him watching, her smile grew, wider. "Hey!" she called out, extending her hand. "Come outside with me?" Nathan didn't hesitate. He grabbed his coat and joined her in the swirling snow. They stood together, watching their breath cloud in the cold air, both changed by what they'd been through, but not broken by it. Olivia squeezed his hand. "You know what I learned from all this?" "What?" "Sometimes the bravest thing isn't facing your fears alone," she said softly. "Sometimes it's letting someone else be brave with you." Nathan looked at his sister, strong, resilient, healing, and knew that some things would never be the same. But as the snow fell around them, covering the world in clean white, he realized that different didn't mean worse. It meant wiser, closer, stronger, and that was enough.